brilliantly last.
Welcome to the Partnership Economy. This podcast explores the power of partnerships through candid conversations with industry leaders. Join our hosts, Dave Yavano, CEO, and Todd Crawford, co-founder of Impact.com, as they unpack the future of partnerships as a lever for scale and an opportunity to put the consumer first.
Welcome back to the Partnership Economy. This is Todd Crawford, and I'm really excited to share our second episode of the season today. Today's guest has been active in the digital advertising space for nearly 27 years. Julia Linehan is the founder and managing director of the Digital Voice, an award-winning B2B PR agency that specializes in providing PR for Ad and Martech disruptors like White Bullet, Hybrid Theory, and Exit B, to name a few. Julia has been known as the Voice and has been nominated for multiple awards, including one of the top 5 digital trading leaders of 2016 at the Drum Digital Trading Awards, and was part of the 40 over 40 list in 2021. We discuss getting back to in-person events, ad fraud and the potential risks to brands, and the upward momentum of partnerships. This was a great conversation, and I hope you enjoy. Welcome to the podcast, Julia. How are you?
I'm great. Thank you, Todd. How are you?
I'm doing well as well.
Good.
It's always good to catch up with you. Obviously, really excited to pick your brain today and hear more about kind of what you're thinking when it comes to the partnership economy. From your perspective, what's top of mind right now in the industry from your perspective?
Oh, do you know what? This is such an easy one because I think it's front and center of a lot of people's minds. That's events. They're back and they seem to be back bigger than ever. Cannes is the big one. I mean, I'm surprised by how much everybody is jumping back into Cannes with both feet and a very happy, smiling face. And I think that's indicative of how the whole world is opening up and reawakening. It's interesting because it's still uncertain times. We were expecting a little bit of reticence about it. I don't think so. It just seems that people are going, we're desperate for it. Bring it on. What do you think? Are you seeing that?
I agree. I was just in Hamburg 2 weeks ago. Maybe it's been 3 now. Internet Marketing Rockstar Festival. 70,000 attendees in Hamburg.
Insane.
It is insane. It was so big. And I was very, very amazed that so many people were attending, obviously from all over the world.
I didn't realize quite how much people were desperate to actually reconnect. I think as a company, the Digital Voice is 100% remote and always has been. And actually, so we're quite used to that feeling that a lot can be done behind these 3 screens. And in fact, we embraced virtual experiences and all of that. But it's exciting to still see how people are connecting and that desire to connect. And so many partnerships happened during lockdown. Partnerships were created left, right, and center. And actually what we're then seeing is those come to fruition and people then go together and show what they're doing together. And let's see the fruits of your labor kind of thing. And I think they're back with a loud bang. It doesn't seem to be that they're concerned, maybe, certainly not on the surface, of the uncertain times we're in. It seems that most people are going, actually, we're going to show how we're now stronger. We're stronger together. And let's put a very large, big smiley face on it, certainly at the events coming up.
Yeah, we had people from our London and our Berlin offices there, and many of them were meeting each other for the first time in person, and I was meeting them for the first time in person. And then, of course, as you pointed out, a lot of the business opportunities that have been being created over these last 2 years, people are actually meeting face to face for the very first time. It seemed very positive. I was very impressed. You're right. There's just this hunger for interaction and better opportunities to do more business together.
I think so. I mean, actually, interestingly enough, Todd, Demexco, which is coming up in September and which has always been on Impact's radar, on my radar, that's always been the bigger one in Germany. And OMR has just, really shown that it can handle 2 strong events per year. And also it shows that what people are looking to get out of an event, and that it has been always, Mexico has always been an event where business is done. Cannes, slightly less so, let's be honest. It's a place where a lot of rosé drinking gets done. But I do see this time a slight shift in people wanting to schedule meetings, and it wanting to be that there is a focus of what are we achieving here? Are we meeting because we want to create a partnership? Yes, we do. So let's put the bells and whistles of the yachts and the rosé around it, but still it's where business gets done. And I think that's important to remember, and possibly that's a shift from the fact that everybody worked in a different way during lockdown. It was hugely productive, and maybe that's going to go forward and propel us a little bit better in how we take advantage of these events.
Yeah, we'll see how things progress here, but it seems like conferences and face-to-face stuff is coming back. We have, by the time this airs, we'll have already had our event in New York, which has over 500 people registered to go to it. It's our biggest event yet. And of course, we had a 2-year break as well. So,
absolutely. Though you've got to be honest, because that's IPX experience, but last year's virtual impact PX event was so strong and showed how it can be done. And I do wish that hope that people don't forget that, look, there is still a virtual element to events, and still a lot of people that not just can't all travel, but we can't all, we've made a huge impact on, say, our own carbon footprint in not traveling and not flying hundreds and hundreds of people globally. I'd love to see there be just that mix and that just respect for those that don't want to leave or can't travel or shouldn't travel, or whatever the reasons. Making it accessible has to be key. So you impacted it brilliantly last year. It shows it can be done, but a mixture of both.
Back in the day, there's kind of another thing. Webinars were really popular, but people don't want to attend something scheduled. They kind of want it on demand. So you're seeing people like just do a recording, which I guess is a webinar in a way. It's just not viewed live, and then it's just available on demand. So definitely behavior has shifted for sure. Anything else top of mind before we shift to the next question?
There's more of a focus on, as companies, on the power of remote. And I think I mentioned it, and I'm loving seeing how there isn't that need to necessarily be in person. I've talked about, yes, the desire for in-person events, but I equally love the fact that remote is being respected. And it's not always, I'll give an example, Todd. There are 20 people at the Digital Voice and not one of us lives in London. But you'd be amazed how many times people say, I can meet you, I'm over there in London, can we meet? I'm like, I don't live in London. I don't know anyone, none of my team live in London. And I have to kind of stress to them, look, we can get more done. I'm far more productive if we meet almost like this. It's like you're meeting via the screen and being able to enjoy a cup of coffee virtually on occasions. It's a mix of both, and that would just be my final thought on that.
Despite lockdowns and the business challenges experienced over the last 2 years, partnerships are still thriving. But now that events are coming back, Julia is seeing an increase in requests for in-person meetings, and I mentioned that many of us are now meeting fellow colleagues for the first time in person. Events will be a great opportunity to connect with your existing partners and explore new opportunities, keeping in mind that virtual meetings are probably here to stay. Let's hear next what's keeping Julia up at night.
Do you know what? From a business perspective, I'm going to put this out there that cybercrime really bothers me on a number of different factors. I think from a personal perspective and what's going on in the world at the moment, and the fear of potential cyber warfare is a threat. But let's look at our own industry, and I think there's a huge threat to our industry. There always has been. In fact, again, Impact knew this 8 years ago with the investment and buyout of Forensic. Cybercrime, hacking, ad-funded piracy, it all amounts to the fact that billions are falling into the hands of criminals. And I know I'm sounding like I'm on my sandbox now, but it's a case that is funding serious organized crime, and we as an industry can do something about it. Advertisers can simply not, if you look at for ad-funded piracy, the two words ad-funded are the key to this. You just need not advertise on pirate websites, and boom, we can stop 1.3 3-4 billion going into the hands of criminals. I just think the power's in our hands, and I get frustrated that we're not doing more. It's something that bothers me.
Yeah, I think historically any kind of fraud where there's supply and demand let's talk about advertising, right? You have advertisers who want to reach as many consumers as possible, and then you have distribution that wants to sell as much advertising as possible. And if advertisers aren't complaining about impression quality or click quality and they're paying, then a lot of times there's no real incentive to fix the problem, because by fixing the problem, you're basically taking money out of your pocket as the distribution, right? I think that's always been troubling to me. In the old back in the 15, 20 years ago, when you saw a lot of CPA fraud, it was almost like the supply side would blend as much fraud into good CPA results to kind of get your pain tolerance. Like, you can tolerate this much, no more. And there was no real incentive for them to just send high quality, right? So I think that's more the challenge. It's the criminals are taking advantage, right? It's the internet. Anybody can find something that they can get for, little effort or even a lot of effort. If the payoff's well, they're going to do it.
If you look at mobile, mobile was the next target for criminals, because as mobile grew, criminals go where the money goes. And what happened in mobile was it actually for the first time ever started knocking at consumers' door, because it was affecting data, the user's own data, because of it. And it does actually on desktop as well, because it's malware gets dropped from a lot of these pirate sites. And when it knocks at consumers' door, brands will notice, because they could get called out on this, and they do not want that. In a time when trust, transparency, authenticity are words we hear all the time, I think brands need to be aware of damaged reputation here, of if they are called out and they are it's going to be, talk about crisis communications issue, that's going to be hugely damaging. They need to just be mindful of it and think about it. I think 5 years ago, Todd, the affiliate industry had these problems with affiliate fraud. And that really started affecting the brands themselves. They were having to pay out for false affiliate trades that weren't real. And eBay had a big issue with it at the time. And I think that seemed to be an area, because it had that impact on brands directly and on consumers, it got cleaned up. And I just think you're right. It hasn't happened in the ad industry, probably because no one's calling it. It's not actually impacting it directly. But if we look at industry dynamics, and if we look at the industry and dynamics are now moving towards attention and engagement, you've got to ask, when are you going to start waking up and going, that like wasn't real, that engagement wasn't real?
Yeah, there almost needs to be, to me, like some type of certification of your traffic, right? Like, you have some independent party and you attest that you have certain things in place to mitigate it. Because I think if the ad dollars won't go to supply that isn't certified, right? Problem is the certification, right? It seems like the IAB would be a good driver for this, but somebody needs to say, no large brand, like you said, it's a PR nightmare. They don't want their dollars funding criminal organizations and or just people who are stealing, right? It's a very, so I think that's where it needs to go, because you oftentimes have a media agency in the middle of the buying, right? Their job is to be allocated a budget and spend it wisely. They don't come back and say, we only spent half your budget because we were uncomfortable spending the other half, right? That's not kind of their business model, right? They want to spend 100% of the budget allocated. They want to always advocate for more, because that's their business model. And they want to try to spend it as wisely as possible. But a lot of times they don't have the insights either. Even these fraud tools aren't catching everything. I think something has to happen in the industry to make it, safe.
Definitely. I think the key is you have to be able to look yourself in the mirror and go, have I done the very best I can to protect my brands and my consumers or my audience or whatever it is. And the technology is there, finding the right technology and testing it and seeing what works. I mean, there's companies that said like White Bullet who specialize in piracy. There's other companies out there that specialize in the brand safety elements, and we could name all of them. And then you've got Augustin Fu, who talks about the fact that people aren't doing enough and is calling out all the time. And then you've got Tag and JICWebs and IAB who are making inroads into this and are taking a step forward. It's a case of everybody needs to look in the mirror themselves and go, what did I do? Am I doing what I should be doing to implement it? Am I actively trying to fight this? So yeah, I think it's a problem, but I hope to see us actually be able to, I always say this next year is go, look, we made a dent. It's gone down. Yay. Industry worked together. Partnerships were created that helped solve this issue. That's the goal.
Yeah, I think the largest brands, the largest budgets need to, CMOs need to say, we're not spending any money with anyone unless we are 100% confidence. And that will change the behavior very quickly. I mean, time will tell. I think it's a little bit of an awareness thing, right? It's just people just want to keep doing business as usual, and they don't see the fraud.
It's see no evil, hear no evil. Interesting enough, Todd, there's school of thought, various schools of thoughts on name and shame. I don't know what your stance is. I mean, no one wants to do it, but at some point it might happen.
Well, that's the PR nightmare. I mean, if a large brand gets told that where they're buying media is, funding fraud, they're going to freak out and make a change, right? But will it be permanent, or will it elicit industry-wide?
That's a lot. Other than that, I'm always positive and err on the side of positive, and I see so much good and strength, and I'm overwhelmed actually with what's going on in M&A and the deals that are being done, the partnerships. I mean, you guys are insane with the amount that you've done over the last 2 years of showing how it's done, and I see that in the industry. And we've got to look at ourselves and go, this is good. We create good. We do good. We build well. We power up. I don't know. I think there's momentum, and I see it only going in one direction. It's hugely upbeat.
I agree. I think partnerships in general are getting broader and deeper and more meaningful to brands. If you're fighting for your share of a pie doesn't matter how big it is, you're just fighting against the incumbents to take market share away from them for your benefit, and you're not really doing anything for the industry. You're just fighting to take money for yourself. The whole industry, which I think it does in large part, focus on growing the pie. Everyone gets bigger, and then maybe you get a bigger share of that pie.
I think so, and I think I look at one of the biggest part areas. You take commerce content, and that's been a big shift online. And I think, then what's the number? You probably know this better than me. Is it 1 million to 2.6 million in 2 years that Shopify went up by, and a big shift? And I know that there's talk of it's a little bit of a plateau now, but that doesn't matter. There's been a huge jump, and that was a synergy between brands and publishers. And that was actually saying, well, let's look at this growth and let's see how we can work with it. It's gone online, and it's increased in that way. How can we work to accelerate that shift? How can we make commerce content bigger, and therefore a bigger slice of the pie for all those involved? I thought that was quite exciting.
I feel like the opportunities, the value it's bringing, brands have been screaming in the partnership channels for content. That's what they want more of. And as you said, this commerce content is so valuable, and there's so much room to expand. I mean, even what's going on, here in the US, it shows how big it can be all over the world. That's, to me, probably the most exciting thing right now, because it's just going to bring so much value to the industry. It's going to grow that pie, and brands are going to eat it up, because the demand for this content commerce is so far outweighed by the supply. They can't produce enough content, right, to meet the demand.
I think it's a good thing. I think, as you said, publishers, the key for publishers is commerce content. The key for brands, it's got to be influencer and creators. And our advice for those two, the buy and the sell side, is focus on those, because that's what's going to be strongest. Commerce content on this side, and then the influencers on that side. And I think create the influencer market, and the influencer economy is the other area of significant growth and partnerships that work. And creators and influencers can really garner such loyalty to that brand, and it has to be done with authenticity. Though, God, have I seen some epic fails. But if brands can work out what's beneficial for them, what makes their brand really authentic via an influencer, then that's a strong partnership. But as with anything, they just got to get it right and not just jump in with left foot, wherever the phrase is jumping in with a knowledge and an understanding and a thought. Really think about how this is going to work and work well and make us look better and stronger.
Yeah, when I was in Hamburg at that IMR festival, I did a presentation there on the future of advertising is not advertising. And the idea being that consumers are not interested in advertising, right? They try to avoid it, block it. They don't trust it. But this commerce content and influencers, to me, is not advertising. It's trust that the consumer has with influencers they follow, or content and entertainment that they trust. And they're getting their information and entertainment and buying decisions through these types of touch points on the internet, right? The consumer is empowered now. And this is what, to me, is where brands really need to focus in getting that consumer trust. Because when a consumer trusts a review on the best e-bike to buy, and they give you 10 different types and all the information you need to understand the differences between them. And then you make that decision and they link to the brand that sells the bike you want. That trust in that publisher that the consumer has is kind of transferred to that brand, because that publisher trusts the brand to recommend their product after reviewing it, right? And you can't do that with an ad. You can't be at the top of Google search results as a brand, and that doesn't create trust. Matter of fact, it probably creates distrust.
Yeah, there's one there is an exception slightly. There's various companies really going down the attention route, and the likes of Gum, for example, have launched this mindset matrix, and I'm going to call them out because I think it's clever, because it's about attention, data, and creativity. I say advertising not dead, simmering, and absolutely it can work if done well with that magic mix of those three. And everyone talks about attention, but it's not just gaining attention, it's then getting engagement. And how do you do that? You've got to this very heady mix of that data and creativity. That's finely tuned. And I think the industry needs to go, if I'm going to do that, I need to understand what I'm doing and why, and add those elements in. But I then need to look at influencer and what I'm doing in that space and get that right. And then I need to make sure I've got sales and that commerce element. As with anything, there's so many elements that could work. They should absolutely try each of those. We always say it's kind of then think about what you yourself are bringing to the party, and make sure you'll be bold, be brave, be you, be true to what you are as well. And it doesn't matter if you're going, whether that is in advertising or in your commerce content or an email marketing or whatever strand it is, there are certain elements that you can bring to each one of those. And certainly testing, seeing what works, understanding it, but absolutely making sure it's right for what you're doing, and it's showing and it's representing you well and in the best possible light. That's going to carry you forward, I think.
Julia, I love the way you put that. I agree. I think, it is a balance. There's no silver bullet here. And like you said, the brands that are most authentic and transparent, I guess you could say, are the ones that consumers gravitate towards, right? They want a genuine human-like feeling when they're buying from a retailer. They don't want it to be cold and just a transaction in some ways. They want to feel that brand loyalty in a way, or at least that relationship in some way. And even just through, like I said, these partnerships, through influencers, you're creating a different kind of dynamic with the consumer.
Hugely. Do you know what? I might change mine from what I'd said to now: be bold, be brave, be you, be human. There we go.
Yeah.
Added that one in. Yeah. That's it.
All right. Thankful for you coming on board and sharing some of your thoughts always.
No, it's a great pleasure. Always good to see you.
Yeah, I look forward to catching up again soon, maybe in person.
Yes. Thank you, Todd.
Thank you. Julia's concerns about digital ad fraud are understandable. With constantly changing technology and tools, ad fraud will be an ongoing challenge. Brands are obviously not looking to spend their marketing dollars on digital channels that could be potentially fraudulent. This is an area that will continue to require more oversight so that companies can confidently partner with digital channels. On a positive note, I agree with Julia that there is an upward momentum in partnerships. Commerce content and influencers are driving trust with consumers. Sometimes ads can have the opposite effect and erode trust, but Julia did make a good point. The right mix of creativity and testing brought to advertising, email marketing, and other channels can work. Being transparent with your customers is crucial in gaining their trust. Thanks again to Julia for joining us on the Partnership Economy. Thanks for listening, and I look forward to next time.
Thanks for listening to the Partnership Economy, brought to you by Impact.com. If you enjoyed today's episode, be sure to subscribe to the show and rate and review it on Apple Podcasts.